Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen's hands trembled as she read the official military document, the words blurring through her tears. Luna, military working dog K, 9 Unit 247, deceased due to complications from service-related injuries. October 15, 2024. The letter had arrived 3 days before Christmas, sitting in her mailbox like a cruel joke. Her Luna, the Belgian Malinois who had saved her life in Kandahar, who had endured 3 tours beside her, who had been her lifeline through nightmares and flashbacks, was gone, and she hadn't even been there to say goodbye. Sarah let the letter fall to her apartment floor, the thin paper drifting down like autumn leaves. Around her, the silence was deafening. No scratching of paws on hardwood. No gentle snuffling at her door when the nightmares came. No warm weight settling beside her on the couch during her sleepless nights. For 18 months, Luna had been more than a service dog. She had been her anchor to humanity after the devastating IED explosion that had taken her left leg below the knee and left her with severe PTSD. Luna had sensed her panic attacks before Sarah even felt them coming, had literally pulled her away from the edge of rooftops when the voices in her head grew too loud, had slept with her head pressed against Sarah's chest, so she could feel a heartbeat that wasn't her own racing in terror. The first time Luna had saved her life, they were patrolling a village outside Kandahar. Sarah's prosthetic leg had caught on debris, and she'd fallen behind the unit. Luna had frozen, ears perked, tail rigid, her trained signal for danger. When Sarah didn't immediately respond, Luna had knocked her sideways just as a sniper's bullet whistled through the space where Sarah's head had been. The second time was in Helmand Province, when Luna had detected the faintest scent of explosives buried beneath a market stall. The third time was the worst, during their final mission, when an IED had exploded just feet from their vehicle. Luna had thrown her body over Sarah's, absorbing shrapnel that would have killed her instantly. All military working dogs are treated with the utmost respect and dignity, the letter continued, as if the official language could soften the blow. Luna was buried with full military honors at the Veterans Dog Cemetery in Arlington. Sarah laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in her empty apartment. Since her medical discharge 6 months ago, she'd been fighting the VA for proper mental health care, for prosthetic adjustments, for any kind of recognition that she mattered. And now they were telling her that Luna, her Luna, had been buried with honors while Sarah couldn't even attend a proper military ceremony because her PTSD made crowds unbearable. She reached for her phone, scrolling to her contacts. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison had been their commanding officer. He would know more. He would have answers. Sarah? Morrison's voice was warm but tired when he answered. How are you holding up, soldier? Luna's dead, Sarah said flatly, skipping pleasantries. The military just sent me a condolence letter. They said she was buried with honors at Arlington. Did you know about this? Silence stretched across the line, thick and uncomfortable. Sarah's heart began to race, a familiar feeling, one that Luna would have immediately recognized and responded to. Sarah, where did you get that information? Official letter, signed by your predecessor, Colonel Harrison. Luna died October 15 from service-related complications. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why wasn't I invited to the ceremony? Another pause, longer this time. Sarah could hear papers rustling, muffled voices in the background. Sarah, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Did anyone actually see Luna's body? Sarah's breath caught, her prosthetic leg suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The automated voice in her head, the one that sounded suspiciously like Luna's, began whispering warnings. What are you saying, Colonel? I'm saying that I received a call this morning from a commander at Fort Carson. They've been searching for Luna for 3 months. According to their records, she never completed the mandatory evaluation for service retirement. Officially, she's listed as AWOL. Sarah's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto her couch. Luna, her Luna, was missing. Not dead. Missing. The military had lied to her, had sent her a fake death certificate, and she had fallen for it completely. There's more, Morrison continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. 3 other veterans have received similar letters. Their service dogs are supposedly deceased. But when we follow up, Sarah, I think someone is stealing military working dogs. The room began to spin. Sarah gripped the couch armrest, her breathing becoming shallow and rapid. The familiar symptoms were rising. The tightness in her chest, the way the walls seemed to be closing in, the sudden terror that made her want to run and hide. Colonel, I need to see her. If Luna is alive, I need to find her. I can't exist in a world where I don't know if she's safe. Sarah, I understand, but this is bigger than just Luna. If someone is orchestrating a fake death certificate operation, they could be dangerous. You need to let the military police handle this. But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was thinking about Luna's intelligent brown eyes, the way she would press her head against Sarah's hand when she sensed panic, the soft whine she made when Sarah had nightmares. Colonel, I love Luna more than my own life. Do you really think a fake death certificate is going to stop me from finding her? Sarah, wait. Sarah hung up the phone, her decision made. She pulled out her laptop and began searching for information about the Arlington Veterans Dog Cemetery. If this was all a lie, there would be records. There would be proof. What she found made her blood run cold. The cemetery existed, but Luna's name was nowhere in the burial records for October 15th, 2024, or any day in October. In fact, there were no burials recorded for that entire week. But buried deep in the military's public database, she found a single entry that made her heart stop. Luna, military working dog K, 9 Unit 247, transferred to civilian contractor for behavioral modification program, classification level 7, contact prohibited, behavioral modification program. The word sent a chill through Sarah's spine. She had heard whispers about classified programs that took problem military dogs and tried to strip away their loyalty to their handlers, making them more compliant for other operations. Sarah grabbed her keys and her service weapon from the safe. Luna was alive, but she was being held somewhere, and someone had gone to elaborate lengths to keep Sarah away from her. As she headed for the door, a small package on her doormat caught her eye. No return address, just her name written in block letters. Inside, wrapped in military camouflage fabric, was Luna's blue military collar with her identification tags, and a note written in what looked like a child's crayon. She remembers you. Help her remember. Box 47, Fort Carson Storage Facility. Come alone. Sarah stared at the collar in her shaking hands. Luna's name still visible on the tarnished metal tag. Everything about the scream trap, but Luna's scent, faded but still there, sent her over the edge. She was going to Fort Carson, and she was going to find Luna, no matter what it cost her. Sarah's hands shook as she pulled into the Fort Carson Storage Facility parking lot at 2:47 a.m. The fake death certificate crumpled in her passenger seat, and Luna's collar felt impossibly heavy in her hands. Somewhere in this maze of concrete buildings, her partner was waiting, but she wasn't prepared for the truth that would shatter everything she thought she knew about the military's treatment of its four-legged heroes. The storage facility stretched endlessly in the darkness, rows of identical metal buildings creating a labyrinth that seemed designed to confuse. Sarah parked her beat-up Honda Civic between two massive military supply trucks, her heart hammering against her ribs. The black SUV that had been following her since Phoenix was nowhere to be seen now, but she could still feel eyes watching her from the shadows. She checked her service weapon one more time, something she hadn't touched since her medical discharge, and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Luna's collar hung around her neck like a talisman, the metal tags cold against her skin. Building 47 stood at the far end of the complex, its windows dark and forbidding. Sarah approached cautiously, her prosthetic leg clicking against the concrete with each step. The facility was supposed to be abandoned, but something felt wrong. The air carried scents that didn't belong. Bleach, yes, but underneath it was something else, something organic and wrong. The storage unit marked 47C was locked with a heavy military-grade padlock, but it had already been picked. The door hung slightly ajar, revealing only darkness beyond. Sarah pushed it open with her foot, her phone's flashlight cutting through the blackness. What she saw inside made her stomach lurch. The storage unit wasn't empty. It was filled with dog crates, dozens of them, stacked 3 high and stretching back into the darkness. But these weren't ordinary crates. Each one had been modified with small viewing windows and feeding slots, and every single one was occupied. Sarah's breath caught as she moved deeper into space, her flashlight beam illuminating face after face. German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Labrador Retrievers, all military working dogs, all wearing identification tags that marked them as deceased according to official records. But they were all very much alive, and they were all staring at her with the same expression, a mixture of hope and desperate recognition. These were dogs who had been separated from their handlers, dogs who had been told their humans were dead, dogs who had been waiting for months or even years for someone to come back for them. Sarah's knees gave out, and she collapsed beside the nearest crate. Inside was a German Shepherd with one ear torn and a scar running down his muzzle. His tail wagged frantically when he saw her, and he pressed his nose against the viewing window, whining softly. "Hey there, buddy," Sarah whispered, reaching toward the crate. The dog's tag read Max, K, 9 Unit 189, Handler, SGD, James Wright, status, deceased August 15, 2024. Sergeant James Wright. Sarah knew that name. He'd been in her unit before she was injured. She'd been at his funeral. But Max was here, alive, waiting for a handler who thought he was dead. Sarah moved through the crates like a woman in a nightmare, reading tag after tag. Each one told the same story. A handler who had been notified of their dog's death, a dog who had been quietly transferred to this facility, and a lie that had torn apart 2 lives. Then she found Luna. Her partner was in the very back corner of the facility, in a crate that was larger than the others. Luna had lost weight. Sarah could see her ribs beneath her coat, and her usually bright eyes were dull with depression. But when she saw Sarah, every muscle in her body went rigid with shock. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Luna began to whine, a sound Sarah had never heard from her before. Part joy, part desperation, part heartbreak. "Luna," Sarah breathed, falling to her knees in front of the crate. "Oh, Luna, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you." Luna pressed her entire body against the viewing window, her tail creating a thunderous noise against the metal floor. Her nose was working frantically, trying to reach Sarah through the small opening, and her eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that had seen Sarah through the worst moments of her life, were filled with tears. Sarah fumbled with the crate's lock, but it was military grade and designed to be tamper-proof. She needed tools, time, and a plan, none of which she had. "Sarah-chan." The voice came from behind her, calm and professional. Sarah spun around to find a woman in military fatigues standing in the storage unit's entrance, flanked by 2 armed guards. The woman was tall and severe-looking, with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun and cold gray eyes that seemed to look right through her. "Colonel Patricia Vance," the woman introduced herself. "I'm the director of the Military Working Dog Behavioral Modification Program. You're trespassing on federal property." "This isn't a behavioral modification program," Sarah said, standing slowly, her hand moving unconsciously toward her weapon. "This is a prison. You're holding stolen dogs." Colonel Vance smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "These dogs are classified as behavioral liabilities. They form inappropriate attachments to their handlers, making them unsuitable for continued service. The modification program is designed to break these bonds and retrain them for specialized operations." "You're torturing them," Sarah hissed. "Look at them. They're depressed, they're scared, they're learning to be better soldiers," Vance interrupted. "Dogs are tools, Sergeant Chun. Sometimes tools need to be sharpened." Sarah's vision went red. She pulled her service weapon and aimed it at Vance's head, her hand steady despite the rage coursing through her veins. "Open Luna's crate. Now!" "Sarah, you're making a mistake," Vance said calmly, as if Sarah were holding a water pistol instead of a loaded M9. "This program is classified for a reason. These dogs are being prepared for operations that could save thousands of human lives. Your attachment to one dog is irrelevant in the face of that responsibility." "My attachment is irrelevant?" Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "Luna saved my life 3 times. She carried me through 60 pounds of shrapnel when an IED exploded. She kept me sane when my brain was broken. She was doing her job." Vance cut in. "As was I. when I authorize her transfer to this facility. As are you when you point that weapon at a superior officer." Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. She could end this right now. She could shoot Vance and free Luna and all the other dogs waiting in their cages. But then she heard it, a soft whimpering from Luna's crate, followed by a sound that broke her heart into pieces. Luna was singing. It was a song Sarah had taught her during their first deployment together, a simple melody Sarah would hum when Luna was scared or injured. Luna had learned to harmonize with it, adding her own voice to create a sound that was both haunting and beautiful. In this place of concrete and steel, surrounded by other dogs who had been stolen from their handlers, Luna was singing their song. She was holding on to the memory of who they had been together, refusing to let this place break her spirit. Sarah battles guards in the storage facility. 3,000 miles away in a subterranean bunker beneath the Pentagon, General Harrison watches her struggle on multiple screens with the cold calculation of a man who has just discovered that his entire operation depends on one woman's failure, and he's about to make sure she doesn't succeed. Washington, D.C., the Pentagon, 11:47 p.m. The Situation Room, buried 7 stories beneath the Pentagon, hummed with the quiet efficiency of a military command center that never slept. Banks of monitors displayed satellite feeds, communication intercepts, and real-time surveillance footage from every corner of the globe. But tonight, all attention focused on a single facility in Colorado, where Staff Sergeant Sarah Chun was systematically destroying 15 years of careful planning. General Marcus Harrison adjusted his reading glasses and studied the live feed from Storage Facility 47. Sarah moved with the fluid grace of a trained soldier, her prosthetic legs somehow not slowing her as she incapacitated 2 guards with tactics that would have made her instructors proud. Behind her, in the facility's red emergency lighting, 47 stolen military working dogs waited in their crates for salvation that might never come. "Sir," his aide whispered, approaching with a secure phone. "Colonel Vance is calling from a facility. She requests immediate authorization to use lethal force." General Harrison didn't take the phone. Instead, he leaned back in his leather chair and steepled his fingers, studying Sarah's movements on the screen with the detached interest of a scientist observing a particularly interesting specimen. "Tell Colonel Vance that lethal force is not authorized. Sergeant Chun is not to be harmed." "Sir, did I stutter, Lieutenant?" Harrison's voice carried the weight of 30 years in uniform. Sergeant Chun walks out of that facility alive, along with every stolen dog. "Do you understand why, Lieutenant?" The aide shook his head, confusion evident in his young features. "Because, son, Sergeant Sarah Chun isn't the enemy. She's the victim we've been looking for." Harrison gestured to the screens showing Sarah's fight. 6 months ago, we discovered that someone within our own intelligence network had been using military working dogs as test subjects for classified behavioral modification experiments. Experiments that were killing the dogs. The aide's face paled. "Sir, Project Faithful Companion wasn't designed to modify dogs, Lieutenant. It was designed to kill them slowly while studying the effects of psychological trauma on canine neurochemistry. Our estimates suggest that approximately 200 military working dogs have been murdered in the name of research over the past 3 years." Harrison stood and moved to a large tactical display showing locations of suspected facilities across the country. Red pins marked locations where stolen dogs were being held. Green pins showed active investigations. And in the center, marked with a single gold star, was Colorado. Sarah Chun and her partner Luna were supposed to be the next test subjects. Luna was chosen specifically because of her attachment to Sarah. The psychologist believed that separating them would cause maximum psychological stress, making the data more valuable. The aide stared at the screens in horror. "But, sir, if you knew about the program, why didn't you shut it down?" "Because, Lieutenant, shutting down the program would have meant destroying the evidence. The people behind Project Faithful Companion have friends in Congress, friends in the intelligence community, friends in places where a general's power means nothing." Harrison's jaw tightened, but they made one mistake. They underestimated the bond between a handler and her dog. On the screen, Sarah had just knocked out the 3rd guard and was running toward Luna's crate. Despite everything, the alarms, emergency lighting, the chaos, her focus remained absolute. She was going to free her partner, no matter the cost. Sergeant Chen was medically discharged with severe PTSD and a prosthetic leg. Harrison continued. According to her records, she should be barely functional. But look at her now. Look at what love does to a broken soldier. Harrison picked up the secure phone and dialed directly to the facility. Colonel Vance, this is General Harrison. Sergeant Chen is to be allowed to free all dogs and evacuate the facility safely. Any resistance to this order will result in your immediate arrest on charges of conspiracy against the United States military. Sir, we have 15 years of research investment. Colonel Vance, you will watch the news tomorrow morning and see yourself arrested by the FBI for crimes against military property. But tonight, your job is to make sure Sergeant Chen and her partner walk out of that facility alive. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir. Harrison hung up and returned his attention to the screens. Sarah had just opened Luna's crate, and even through the grainy surveillance footage, he could see the reunion. Luna didn't just run to Sarah. She launched herself with the desperate joy of a dog who had spent months believing her human was dead. But as Harrison watched the embrace, his expression darkened. Sarah's movements were too fluid, her reactions too quick for someone with her medical profile. Either her PTSD treatment had been more successful than anyone realized, or, get me, Dr. Elizabeth Warren from Walter Reed. He commanded his aide. Now, sir, Sergeant Chen shouldn't be able to fight like that with her prosthetic leg. And she definitely shouldn't be able to fight like that while suffering from severe PTSD. Either we're looking at the most successful treatment in military history, or Harrison's voice trailed off as a new possibility occurred to him. The aide returned with the phone. Dr. Warren is on line 2, sir. Elizabeth, it's Marcus. I need you to pull Sarah Chen's medical records for me. Specifically, I want to know about her PTSD treatment and any experimental therapies she might have received in the past 6 months. Marcus, those records are classified. Elizabeth, I need you to trust me. I think Sarah Chen might be the key to everything we've been trying to uncover about Project Faithful Companion. Dr. Warren's voice became very quiet. Marcus, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that someone might have been using Sarah as a test subject as well. Someone who wanted to see if they could create a perfect handler-dog team by experimenting on both the human and the animal simultaneously. The line went silent for a long moment. When Dr. Warren spoke again, her voice was strained. Marcus, there are things about Sarah's treatment that I can't discuss over an unsecured line, but I will say this. The improvements in her condition have been unlike anything we've ever documented. And the side effects? What side effects, Elizabeth? We call them heightened sensitivity episodes. Sarah can sense things that she shouldn't be able to sense. She can predict danger before it happens. She can communicate with Luna in ways that defy conventional understanding of human-dog relationships. Harrison felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying they're psychic? I'm saying that whatever Project Faithful Companion was really trying to achieve, they may have succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. And if that's true, Marcus, then Sarah Chen is not just a key to exposing this conspiracy. She's the ultimate weapon we've been looking for. On the screen, Sarah was helping other handlers free their dogs, working with an efficiency that bordered on supernatural. She moved between crates like she could sense exactly which locks needed to be opened first, which dogs needed comfort, which people needed help. Luna, Harrison heard Sarah's voice through the facility's communication system. I need you to find the others. Can you help me find the other dogs who need to go home? And Luna, as if she understood perfectly, began moving to the facility with purpose, stopping at crates whose occupants hadn't yet been freed. Harrison hung up the phone and stared at the screen. Sarah Chen wasn't just exposing conspiracy. She was becoming something that the architects of Project Faithful Companion had never intended to create. A perfect soldier, a perfect partner, a perfect weapon. The question was whether she would use that power to save the stolen dogs, or whether she would become the very thing the conspiracy had tried to create. What should have been a triumphant rescue mission becomes a nightmare when Sarah discovers that Luna and the other freed dogs have been implanted with tracking devices, and someone in Washington has just activated them. turning 47 of America's most elite K-9 units into a weapon against the very people trying to save them. Colorado Storage Facility 47, 12:23 a.m. As Sarah led the rescued dogs toward the facility's exit, her elation began curdling into something darker. Luna walked beside her with the eager enthusiasm of a dog finally reunited with her handler, but there was something wrong with her movements. Something too perfect, too controlled. "Sarah," came Colonel Morrison's voice from behind her. He was carrying Max, the German shepherd who had been so weak from months of confinement that he could barely stand. "We need to talk." Sarah turned to see Morrison's face in the emergency lighting, and the expression there made her blood run cold. He'd seen something. Something that changed everything. "What is it, Colonel?" "Watch Luna's eyes," Morrison said quietly. "Really look at them." Sarah knelt beside her partner, gently lifting Luna's head. At first glance, Luna's eyes looked normal, bright, alert, filled with the joy of reunion. But as Sarah looked closer, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. Luna's pupils were slightly dilated, and there was a faint blue reflection deep in her irises that shouldn't be there. "Those aren't Luna's eyes," Sarah whispered. "They're not," Morrison agreed grimly. "Look at the other dogs, Sarah. Really look at them." Sarah's gaze swept across the 47 dogs, walking beside their reunited handlers. Every single one of them showed the same telltale signs: dilated pupils, that blue reflection, and most disturbing of all, a slightly mechanical quality to their movements, as if they were following programmed routines. "Project Faithful Companion," Sarah breathed. "They didn't just steal the dogs. They did something to them." A low, electronic beep echoed through the facility, coming from somewhere deep within the building's infrastructure. As if responding to the sound, every dog in the facility, Luna included, suddenly stopped walking. "Luna?" Sarah called softly. "Luna, what is it, girl?" But Luna wasn't looking at her anymore. Luna was looking past her, at the facility's main exit, with an expression that Sarah had never seen before. Predatory, calculating, dangerous. "Max," Morrison whispered, his voice filled with horror. "Max, sit. Max, stay." But Max wasn't listening to his handler anymore either. Neither was any of the other dogs. They had all turned toward the exit with the same focused intensity, moving with the precision of military formation. The electronic beeping came again, louder this time, and suddenly Sarah understood. It wasn't just a signal. It was a command. "Colonel Vance." Sarah called into the facility's intercom system. "Colonel Vance, what the hell did you do to these dogs?" Silence. Then, through the speakers, came a voice that made Sarah's blood freeze. Not Colonel Vance's voice, but something far more sinister. "Congratulations, Sergeant Chun. You have successfully activated Phase 3 of Project Faithful Companion. All test subjects are now online and functioning as designed." "Phase 3? Sarah demanded. "What the hell is Phase 3? Phase 3 is what happens when 47 of America's most elite military working dogs are activated simultaneously. Phase 3 is what happens when those dogs remember their training but forget their humanity. Phase 3, Sergeant Chun, is a demonstration of the most sophisticated behavioral modification program ever created." Sarah watched in horror as Luna began to move toward the exit again, but this time her movements were different, more purposeful, more predatory, as if she were hunting something. "Where's Luna?" Sarah called out desperately. "What have you done with my dog?" Luna is exactly where she was always meant to be, in service to her country. The only difference is that now her loyalty has been redirected. Morrison grabbed Sarah's arm. "Sarah, we need to run. Now." "But Luna isn't Luna anymore. Not really." Morrison's voice was grim. "Look at her, Sarah. Really look at her." Sarah forced herself to study her partner's face, and what she saw broke her heart. Luna's expression had changed completely. Her usual warmth and joy were gone, replaced by the cold focus of a predator. When Luna's eyes met hers, Sarah saw no recognition, no love, no bond between handler and dog. She saw a weapon looking back at her. "How do we stop this?" Sarah whispered. "We don't," Morrison replied. The only way to stop Project Faithful Companion is to destroy the control system, and that requires going deeper into the facility, where the real processing happens. Behind them, alarms began blaring again, but this time they weren't warning of structural collapse. They were warning of something far worse, a full security lockdown, activated by the control system that had just taken over 47 of the most dangerous dogs in the military. Sarah, Luna's voice came through the facility speakers, but it wasn't Luna speaking. It was Luna's voice, shaped by electronic devices, and transmitted through hidden speakers throughout the building. Sarah, I want you to know that the real Luna loved you very much, right up until the moment she ceased to exist. Sarah's world collapsed. The dog she had fought to save, the partner she had crossed the country to find, the bond she had thought was unbreakable. It was all gone. The real Luna was dead, and what remained was just a sophisticated puppet being controlled by the people who had destroyed her life. "We need to go deeper," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "If there's a control system, we can find it and shut it down." "Sarah, that's suicide," Morrison protested. "This facility goes down 7 levels, and every level is probably guarded by—" A low growl cut him off. Luna had turned away from the exit and was moving toward them, followed by the other 46 dogs. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of hunting wolves, and their eyes all held the same cold intelligence. They weren't hunting them. They were programmed to eliminate them. "Run," Sarah whispered to Morrison. "Take Max and run." "Sarah, go." Morrison scooped up Max and sprinted toward the facility's main entrance, where a security door was slowly closing. Sarah had maybe 30 seconds before Luna and her pack reached her, but she wasn't going to run. She was going to fight. As Luna approached, Sarah drew her service weapon and aimed it at her former partner's head. Luna didn't flinch. She didn't show any recognition of the weapon pointed at her. She just kept moving forward, ready to attack on command. "I'm sorry, Luna," Sarah whispered. "I'm so sorry they did this to you." And then, as Luna prepared to pounce, Sarah heard something that made her freeze. Not through the speakers, not through the facility's communication system, but from Luna herself, a faint whimper, so soft that no one else would have heard it, so brief that it might have been missed. But it was there, underneath the programming, underneath the control, underneath the cold intelligence in Luna's eyes. It was Luna fighting to get out. Colorado Storage Facility 47, Level 7, 12:45 a.m. The moment stretched like eternity. Luna hung suspended between programming and love, between control and the unbreakable bond that had defined both their lives. Her muscles trembled with the effort of fighting against the electronic commands coursing through her neural implant. "Sarah." Luna's voice came through the speakers, but this time it was different. This time it was really her. "Sarah, I can still hear you. I can still remember." The other 46 dogs had stopped their advance, their heads tilting as if they too were fighting against their programming. In the red emergency lighting, Sarah could see the exact moment when Luna's eyes changed from cold calculation back to the warm, loving gaze she had missed for so long. "Luna," Sarah whispered, slowly lowering her weapon. "Luna, it's me. I'm here." "I remember," Luna said, her voice breaking. "I remember the first time you threw the ball, and I brought it back. I remember the night we got caught in that sandstorm in Afghanistan, and you held me all night to keep me warm. I remember you crying when they told you I was dead." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as Luna took a step closer, then another, until she was close enough for Sarah to bury her face in her partner's fur. "I remember you," Luna continued, her voice growing stronger. "I remember choosing you. I remember knowing, even as a puppy, that you were the one human who would never leave me. They tried to take that away, but they couldn't. They could modify my brain, but they couldn't touch my heart." Around them, the other dogs began to move differently. Sergeant Wright's Max nudged his handler's hand with his nose. Not the mechanical nudge of programming, but the gentle touch of a dog who remembered his human. The Belgian Malinois that Sarah didn't recognize pressed her head against her handler's chest, whimpering softly. "They're fighting it," Morrison breathed, watching Max nuzzle against his neck. "They're all fighting it." Sarah looked up from Luna's fur to see the control room above them, where screens showed the neural activity of every dog in the facility. The patterns were chaotic, electrical storms of consciousness fighting against the artificial commands. The implants, Sarah realized, they're not just tracking devices. They're neural suppressors. They're blocking the dog's ability to access their memories and emotions. A new voice crackled through the speakers. Dr. Elizabeth Warren from Walter Reed. Sarah, this is Dr. Warren. We're monitoring from Washington. The neural suppressors can be reversed, but it requires the dogs to access their strongest emotional memories simultaneously. You need to help them remember. Remember what? Sarah asked desperately. Remember why they chose to serve. Remember why they chose to love. Remember that the bond between a handler and their dog is stronger than any technology ever created. Sarah closed her eyes and pressed her forehead against Luna's. Luna, I need you to remember the day we graduated from training. Remember how proud we were. Remember how we promised each other that we would always have each other's backs. Luna's body began to shake, but not from fear, from effort, from the incredible struggle of breaking free, from the programming that had held her captive. I remember, Luna whispered, I remember you telling me that I wasn't just your dog, I was your partner. I remember you saying that together, we were stronger than we could ever be apart. The other dogs began to move toward their handlers. Max pressed his entire body against Morrison, tail wagging for the first time in months. The Belgian Malinois licked her handler's face, her tail wagging frantically. I remember, came a new voice, another dog, fighting against the programming. I remember my handler's laugh. I remember how she always shared her food with me. I remember, another voice joined in. I remember the thunderstorm in Kansas when my handler held me during the fireworks. One by one, the dogs began to speak, their voices filling the facility with the sound of love remembered, bonds reclaimed, and hearts reunited. Sarah felt Luna's body relax completely against hers. The artificial coldness was gone, replaced by the warm, solid presence of the dog she had fought so hard to save. Sarah, Luna said softly, I'm sorry I forgot. I'm sorry I tried to hurt you. You didn't hurt me, Sarah whispered back. You saved me. You reminded me that some bonds are stronger than anything they can do to break them. As the facility's emergency lighting began to flicker back to normal, Sarah realized that this wasn't just about saving 47 dogs. This was about proving that love, the pure, unbreakable love between a handler and their partner, was more powerful than any weapon, any technology, any conspiracy. The real victory wasn't in exposing Project Faithful Companion or arresting the people behind it. The real victory was in watching 47 dogs choose love over programming, loyalty over control, and remembering that sometimes the smallest acts of love can change the world. Epilogue, 6 months later. Sarah sat on her front porch with Luna beside her, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Luna's fur had grown back thick and healthy. Her eyes sparkled with the same intelligence and love that had first captured Sarah's heart, and her tail wagged with the enthusiasm of a dog who had found her way home. The congressional hearings had concluded with the complete dismantling of Project Faithful Companion. Colonel Vance was serving a life sentence for crimes against military property. General Harrison had been promoted and was now heading a new division focused on protecting military working dogs from exploitation. But none of that mattered as much as this moment. Sarah and Luna, together again, watching the world wake up to a new day. Sarah, Luna said softly, her voice carrying all the warmth and love that sustained them both through the darkest moments of their separation. Yeah, girl, I love you. I never stopped loving you, not even when they made me forget. Sarah buried her face in Luna's fur, breathing in the familiar scent of her partner, her best friend, her constant companion in a world that had tried so hard to tear them apart. I love you too, Luna, forever and always. And in that moment, as the sun set over their peaceful home, Sarah knew that some bonds truly are unbreakable, some loves truly are eternal, and some stories truly do have happy endings. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to help more military heroes find their way home.